Hey there.
Welcome to the Gunning Truth with Roni, and the Gunners have beaten the Mancunians of Manchester Blue. We go into another international break after a fantastic win at the Emirates Stadium. The last time out it was the Mancunians of Manchester Red, and now the Mancunians of Manchester Blue. A fantastic win for Arsenal. I thought we were exceptional in the second half. The first half, first 15 minutes, yes, they could have scored. They had opportunities, especially with Alvarez pressing on David Raya, as well as the opportunity for Nathan Ake. Is that what his name is? He had opportunity as well. If Haaland was there, he might have buried it. But you cannot say, sometimes you have opportunities in football games that you don't take, and then maybe you have another opportunity. But in this game, Arsenal were superb in the second half. A key thing was when Arteta, or let's say Pep, when Pep made his changes in the second half, when he made his 3 substitutions, Arteta responded. And in other games, for example, which we drew, or the Lens game which we lost, the substitutions had no impact on that specific game. So it's strange how it works out. Sometimes they have an impact, sometimes they don't have an impact, and you just have to take it as it comes, as they say. Right, some nice images there of the fantastic Emirates Stadium crowd. I thought we were absolutely exceptional on the day, and I just think that Arsenal did what they needed to do, and that was get the 3 points. Obviously, Manchester City started the season so well, and then they've now come into a bit of a blip just ahead of this October international window, and they obviously lost to Wolves. They lost previously to Newcastle United in the Carabao Cup, and then they got back on track against Red Bull Leipzig, a very good win against an informed Red Bull Leipzig team, and we thought that Manchester City are coming. And obviously in the first couple of minutes, Arsenal struggled to deal with him, and it was very, very interesting to see with regards to how Arsenal could actually handle their press. Sometimes when teams press well against us, they obviously press us all the way back to our goalkeeper, so from the front, which is something that we do as well. And obviously David Raya had a couple of dodgy moments in the first half, but I thought he was exceptional in the second half. Yes, you can look at it as Arteta bigging up the guy because it's now his goalkeeper, even though Ramsdale was his goalkeeper as well, or is still his goalkeeper. It just seemed like on the one hand there was obviously an occasion where Arteta was remonstrating with David Raya, maybe to tell him, listen, you need to keep on doing this, and obviously at halftime as well. And some of the passing in the second half was exceptional. He found his man on a tiki, as they call it, and I just think it was absolutely fantastic from Arsenal. Obviously the goal coming from Martinelli, who came on in the second half, he was superb. Obviously Trossard, it now has come out that he's actually got another niggle, so I don't know if it's another muscular issue related to his previous muscular issue, because remember pre-season he was fantastic, then he didn't start the season, then he had 2 fantastic games against Everton and PSV Eindhoven, and then he got a muscular injury and then hasn't looked himself since then. So the Lens game and the City game hasn't looked 100%, so that's a bit of concern that it's constant niggles, but hopefully he will be okay during the international break, where he has been recalled, or he hasn't gone with Belgium. The same with Bukayo Saka. He's going to remain at London Colney, despite the fact that he was pictured, and the videos that the England national team do on the arrival of the players. Bukayo Saka was pictured arriving there, so I'm not entirely sure why is it that other teams, the likes of Liverpool and Manchester City, when there's a bit of a niggle on a player, he doesn't need to go all the way to St. George's, where Saka now had to go. So still here and there a bit of issues that I find with internationals. I do understand that for some players it's very important to play international football, and where do you actually in the calendar get to play the international football? Therefore there is this break, unfortunately, that we have in September and October, so it's something that we know about for years and years. It's all part and parcel. Obviously we know that our players tend to get knocks there or injuries there. We've had it in the past, the likes of Thomas Partey, Bukayo Saka getting a knock or being overplayed, the likes of Declan Rice that's always playing 90 minutes, and then you look at it, there's other players that doesn't play all the time, and in that case that obviously is a bit of a concern. But William Saliba, he's apparently been playing with a bit of a toe problem since the Spurs game. So rumors, you can call it, or somebody that I saw on Twitter that I follow for news and things, saying that he had to possibly play with an injection the couple of games after the Tottenham game. So it doesn't sound like it's a serious thing, but sometimes a small thing does eventually become a big thing. But he has also withdrawn from the national team with France. And then obviously we've got the likes of Ramsdale, Raya. Actually, all three our goalkeepers are going to be involved in the national setup. Karl Hein, funny enough, constantly Estonia concedes 5 goals per game, mostly on international duty. He will obviously be starting for Estonia once again. David Raya has not started in the previous international window. And then obviously Ramsdale started against Scotland for England. And then in terms of our defenders, Zinchenko for Ukraine, they've got key European qualifiers. Ben White wasn't selected, and then obviously Saliba withdrawn, and then Gabriel Magalhaes has gone to Brazil, and then our midfielders, obviously Declan Rice has been selected for England, El Neni has been selected for Egypt despite not playing, Jorginho doesn't get selected for Italy anymore, they're going for a younger midfield, so he tends to not be selected. Vieira will be staying as well, Smith Rowe will be staying, I think he's over the age of 21 now. Or he doesn't qualify anymore for the under-21s, and then obviously he's not being selected for England or for Arsenal for that matter. So hopefully he can get his career back on track. It might mean a move in January permanently. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I'm a big fan of Smith Rowe, but his career is regressing at this moment in time. He did make the national squad for England when he did well for Arsenal, and then unfortunately has regressed since that groin issue that he's picked up over the last 18 months or so. I can't quite think of any other midfielders. Well, obviously Ødegaard's the captain of Norway. Thomas Partey has been selected for Ghana, so I'm assuming he will go because he is now fit. And then obviously the wide players, 3 of our 4 main wide, actually all 4 of our main what you call wide players are going to be staying at London Colney. Nelson obviously over the age of 21, so doesn't play for the under-21s anymore, and he hasn't been selected for England as yet. And then obviously Martinelli wasn't selected for Brazil. They announced their team weeks ago already, so even though he's now fit, he won't be selected. Saka obviously withdrawn, and Trossard withdrawn. So all 4 are wide players, both left wide players, will not be going on international duty. Both right-sided wide players, which is supposed to be Nelson, even though Nelson mostly plays on the left when he comes on, but he's actually supposed to be a right wide player, but he plays mostly on the left, so that's a bit of a conundrum there. But Saka, Nelson, and obviously both Martinelli and Trossard will remain at London Colney, both our central strikers as well as our withdrawn 9/left 8. Kai Havertz, Eddie Nketiah and Gabriel Jesus are also going on national duty. So quite a lot of players are going on international duty, and then you also have some players that are actually going to not be on international duty. So it goes in roundabouts, as they say. So it's 50-50 if you think about it. But really, really happy with the win. And then if I can just quickly go back to the Arsenal City game, where is that? And now the thing isn't here again. Unbelievable. There we go. Right, so Arsenal. Let's put that there. There we go. Awesome. Okay, so the average positions, obviously the goalkeepers to the left, you have David Raya for Arsenal, Ederson for Manchester City. Both didn't have a hell of a lot to do, but I thought accomplished displays from both of them. Obviously, David Raya, a couple of errors, twice allowing Alvarez to almost get the ball into the back of the net by pressing him, by taking long with his kicks. But after the second incident, he was really, really good. He ended up mostly getting the ball to the players. And then, obviously, our furthest... just look how similar this football is, and obviously most of the play happening in the middle third of the pitch. But just look at the positioning of the players. So Dark blue is City, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So you can just look at the two sixes. How funny is that? They both are in similar positions if you just turn the pitch around. So that's quite strange. You had Declan Rice, that was mostly on that side of the field. You had Haaland, that was, look how deep Haaland was. So that's actually quite strange. Rico Lewis was the most advanced midfielder. 19 is Alvarez. So in terms of average positions, Rico Lewis was mostly, well, the closest to Haaland. So Alvarez barely had an impact other than pressing really well. So off the ball, he had a good impact. You had Bernardo Silva, that was very, very much in the middle. Where's Gvardiol? Gvardiol was in between Ben White and Jesus, so he was in that position. Obviously, Ake, number 6, up against Ødegaard over there. And then you had Kovacic and Foden, basically in similar positions on the field. Jorginho. So funny enough, Declan Rice's position was behind, average position was behind Jorginho, according to this. Obviously, Saliba really closely watching Haaland, and when Haaland tried to go against Gabriel, he was also closely watched there, but mostly towards the Saliba side of things. Just look how high up the pitch Ben White were in comparison to Walker's average position over there. And then I'm assuming that's Ruben Diaz at number 3. You had Trossard, 19. They are, unfortunately don't quite show, but I'm assuming that it's quite high up the pitch because it's an average on the starting lineup. So you would probably assume that Gabriel Martinelli was a little bit higher up the pitch, and for most of the second half, and then obviously Walker didn't have the opportunity to push that far up. So I think Walker and Martinelli will be a little bit closer to where Ruben Diaz's position is at this moment in time on that screen. And then obviously, so that's Alvarez, and then 20, who is there, number 20? Oh yeah, Bernardo Silva was much more central in this game. Obviously, Nketiah much further up in terms of average position than Haaland, in terms of both teams is number 9. And then obviously you got Ødegaard, that is his normal position, quite close to what would normally be Bukayo Saka, but now it was Jesus. My man of the match was Jesus. I loved the way he pressed, loved his energy, loved his enthusiasm in this game. Obviously it would be nice of him to get a goal, but as you can see in average positions he was quite far from goal. But just the way that he was able to push Gvardiol at times, or Ake at times. It's quite strange that Gvardiol's average position is on that side, obviously mostly when they had the ball, because Ake was more of the conventional left back in this football game. So really happy with Jesus' display. I thought Ødegaard was exceptional as well in terms of off the ball, trying to get us to press. Obviously he's quite often, most of the time, he's G'ing up the team, and I thought that was quite okay. People are 50-50 because he was trying to G up the crowd early on in the first half. I think it's because it was at that time where Arsenal started to get back into the game, because first 20 minutes City were in total control and they were starting to dominate the game. And then also in the second half, when they made their 3 substitutions, that was also key for the Arsenal when it comes to these things. There we go, average position. So yeah, this is just based on everything. It's so easy to overly analyze these football games, but I think I'm so happy. Fantastic win for the Arsenal, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens after the international break. From in terms of this month alone, we've got 3 games to go, and there's going to be 3 important games, 2 of them away from home. And Arsenal, other than the Lens game, we have been exceptional away from home. We haven't conceded a goal in England, so that's the Carabao Cup as well as the Premier League. So we must just quickly, if you just quickly think back, we obviously had Crystal Palace, a 1-0 win there. Everton was 1-0, Brentford was 1-0, and 4-0 against Bournemouth. So no goals conceded, 7 scored away from home. We are going to Stamford Bridge the moment the league resumes, and I must just actually check if that is on the Sunday. I keep forgetting to check. And then obviously we've got the huge game against let me just see here, Arsenal fixtures. We've got the very big game against Sevilla. And obviously, having lost our last away game in the Champions League, that's going to become a key game. And funny enough, Sevilla sacked their coach. And they will obviously have a league game before our Champions League game, but it will be similar to a new manager bounce, where Sevilla, they've struggled so far this season. as well. And it's going to be interesting to see how that one goes, because they will have a new manager in charge by the time Arsenal play them. So yes, it is. Oh, Arsenal we are playing on that Saturday. So it's at least not the early game. I think Liverpool are playing the early game directly after the international break. So Arsenal will be playing the Saturday evening game at Stamford Bridge, Saturday the 21st of October at 6:30. And then a couple of days later, on the 24th, we play Sevilla. So a key period. Hopefully there's no injuries. Hopefully all those players that have had knocks are going to be able to play. Those are going to be key games, because I'm a little bit concerned on the Chelsea front, in the sense that they are getting better. They looked really good from an attacking standpoint. Defensively, they could be got at. I thought Burnley, for all the talk about Burnley, they've actually been really poor. But Chelsea did look good against Burnley. And obviously the whole Pochettino thing against Arsenal, he's got a decent record against Arsenal. And then obviously the thing, we've won the last 3 years there in a row. So it's going to be interesting to see, with probably playing not as well, we were able to still beat Chelsea 3 years in a row. Now we're on a good stead. We are tied top of the log, and we're going to Stamford Bridge now to try and win 4 years in a row. It's going to be really difficult to do so. I mean, even Liverpool didn't get any, well, they got 1 point out of the game. Chelsea has struggled. They're not the finished article. However, we do know that they've got good players, and they've got players with a point to prove after the international break. However, they do have a lot of internationals once again. All the money they spent, so all those players, probably more than Arsenal's key players, will be playing international football. So if you think about it, David Raya, for example, if this is Arsenal's starting team, Raya, unlikely, he's not the first goalkeeper. He might play, but I think they've got someone else that plays, might be Unai Simon, I could be wrong, is their first keeper. And then Raya is the second keeper normally. So he's on the substitute bench, so he won't play. He would have travelled, but he won't play. And then Ben White is at home. Saliba at home. Gabriel obviously will be playing for Brazil. He has played the last 2 international friendlies. He actually came off with knocks in both games. And then Zinchenko will play for Ukraine. So in terms of, that's our back 5, it looks like. And then in midfield, Declan Rice will very likely play both games against, I don't know who they're playing, but they got 2 games, and I think one of them is an international friendly against Australia. So Declan Rice will play. Kai Havertz or Vieira. Vieira will be back home. Kai Havertz. And also you can think about the possibility of Arsenal playing Thomas Partey and Declan Rice in midfield. Or Jorginho could be back at Chelsea. So Arsenal have options. And then obviously up front we would have Jesus, who will be going to Brazil, or with Brazil. You've got Nketiah, that's with England. He probably won't play. And then obviously you have all 4 our wide players that will be fresh and ready to go. So Arsenal are looking good. We don't need to be too concerned when it comes to the Arsenal. So I'll leave it there for our men's team. We've got Chelsea, Sevilla and Sheffield United at the Emirates Stadium to end the month of October, and then we start with a Declan Rice derby. We've got West Ham hosting Arsenal in the Carabao Cup. It's going to be very interesting to see once again the team, because I'm assuming Declan Rice will be playing the Chelsea game, he will be playing the Sevilla game, and very likely will be playing the Sheffield United game. So it's going to be interesting to see if Arteta is going to play. Maybe he doesn't play the Sheffield United game at the Emirates, and then he plays against West Ham at the London Stadium. That is going to be interesting. But that is the Arsenal news for now. And then I am going to now go on to the women. So Arsenal ladies. So let's see if we can do this. Take the main camera off. Where is that? iPhone camera. Where is this freaking thing, man? There we go. Boom. And then the smaller camera on. There we go. No, let's not do that. Rounded camera off. Here we go. Okay. So, Arsenal's ladies. It's been a bit of a difficult start for the Arsenal ladies. No wins as yet. In the top over there, it was a very disappointing Champions League early group. Well, it was a group stage for qualification. So Arsenal didn't even make the second round of qualification. Obviously, I've done a show before where I've tried to explain why it is that the women unfortunately were not able to Let me see where I can move that. There we go. Yeah, so the Arsenal ladies unfortunately losing to Paris in the first game, and then the start of the WSL season in front of 53,000 people. Arsenal ladies losing to Liverpool in a very frustrating game. As I've also mentioned before, Arsenal have made loads of new signings, top players that was all over in the World Cup. That wasn't too long before the start of the season, and very disappointing that we weren't able to get the results. Some key big players that we've purchased that's not quite performing to the standard that we need, and that was also prevalent in the Man United draw. So Arsenal going ahead. That was last Friday night against the Man United ladies that beat us twice last season, and Arsenal took the lead through Blackstenius, and then two very poor goals conceded, the goalkeeper completely missing a kick, and Man United scoring, and then Man United scored in the second half again. Illerstedt not defending that well. That is now the lady that won the bronze ball at the World Cup. Swedish defender that we've just signed didn't look too good on the defending on that side, and Arsenal conceded another poor goal. They conceded a poor goal against Liverpool as well. All three goals against Paris were poor goals conceded. So it's not as if teams are playing through Arsenal. It's actually just poor decision making, poor defending, and I think that's got to do with the organizational structure of the ladies. Remember, we've had 4 humongous injuries to key players, and Arsenal obviously buying new players, getting them in, trying to bed them in with almost no time, barely a pre-season. You go from the World Cup straight to qualifiers, then a mini pre-season, and into the Women's Super League. So it's been difficult. However, there are other teams that had the same situation that's done better than us. The Man City, less so Liverpool, let's say Man City, Chelsea got 4 points from their 2 games, Man City 4 points from their 2 games, Man United 4 points from their 2 games, Arsenal on 1 at the moment, and they also had players on international duty. Man United also have to now qualify. I think they're actually playing tonight, the second round qualifier for the Champions League. So it's also been similar where there's less time together as teams, and maybe they made less signings, they had less injuries. Arsenal obviously had to make key signings because of injuries and players that went. So it's very difficult to gauge, but the actual performance and the mistakes that were made, that is something that they need to work on when it comes to the international, well, not internationals, but yeah, it's international players, these ladies. So they play for their national teams. They're constantly playing for their national teams. And maybe that's also another thing. They're constantly playing. And maybe you don't have enough time on the training ground as well because of injuries, overplayed, fatigue, etc., etc. But hopefully Arsenal can get back into the swing of things. If I can just have a look at the next game. So they are playing Aston Villa at the Emirates Stadium this Saturday. Or the Sunday it is actually, and then they play Bristol City the following week, and then they start off against Manchester City. I'm not entirely sure if that will be at the Emirates, highly unlikely because it's the first week of November. I think we might have a home game that weekend, so it's possible that game will not be at the Emirates Stadium. So 3 key games for Arsenal. Last season they lost at home to Aston Villa. Bristol City is a new team, and then they did beat Man City at home last season as well. So really hoping that the Arsenal ladies can have a very good season this season, and that we can actually get going when it comes to results. So I will leave it at that. It's the international break. I probably will not do my podcast this week because of very limited football. What I will try and do is maybe if there's any Arsenal news or focus on the Arsenal internationals on next week's show, maybe just bring into my show how it's gone for the guys, the international friendlies. Well, there's some friendlies, there's some European qualifications taking place, and then also having a look at the academy. The Arsenal women would have played. They play Aston Villa this weekend at the Emirates Stadium. Over 30,000 tickets have been sold, so that one will be less than the previous game, but still a lot for the ladies. So really hope they get their season up and running there. And then also obviously having a look at the academy, and then the Arsenal internationals on next week's The Gunning Truth. So no, there won't be a podcast this week, and there won't be a Monday reaction, but next week I will delve into the Arsenal ladies as well as the Arsenal internationals. And then that will be it. Come on, you Gunners. A fantastic win against the Mancunians of Manchester. Come on, you Gunners.
Cadence.